Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser on a Monday morning. It's Monday, so I have Grumpy in all his glory. Honestly, this is the kind of Monday I even brought him with me over here, so I'm going to show you. It deserves like this kind of Grumpy, and you can kind of see the levels of coffee that it will take to put into this damn thing.
You want to know something funny? One's iced, one's hot because I'm just sad.
this this is bad. It feels this is becoming sad because I mean one would guess it's scripted or something, but sadly it is not because honestly we're not even capable of scripting this shit, even if we wanted to. So this is how we're rolling. Everybody's gathering around. Nelson says morning and what the fuck? Yes, that's kind of morning. Ryan says good morning, fuckers. I'm still busy. And I think so am I. I am still salty, and it is odd because it's been 2 days, and every time I cool off, I see something, whether it's on our Discord channel, whether it's on like social media or something, that just bubbles right back up.
Yeah, I thought that I was in the clear because I work Saturdays, so I just record the game and then I watch it later if it's a game that I want to watch. Like this was a game everyone was looking forward toward, and it was going to be one of the best games of the season so far. Most likely, it was supposed to be, and so it wasn't a game that I just was going to check the score. So I recorded it and watched it at 9 p.m. and thought, oh, great, at least I can go to sleep pissed off, wake up tomorrow, and it'll be fine. I didn't have to go the whole day being really upset about this. And here I am Monday morning, I'm still pretty upset. So it didn't go away.
No, how do you see? That's worse. Like I used to do that when I wasn't working from home. When I would record, and nobody's gonna tell you the score, so you can just come home and watch it like it's live. But yeah, if it's bad, that kind of meant I'm not sleeping for a little bit. Like I gotta go online and beat up on some people on like.
Oh yeah, I wasn't able to go to sleep right away. But
okay.
But it wasn't like I was awake from from the match end throughout the rest of Saturday, right? So my afternoon's ruined, my evening is ruined, and my night's ruined. It was just my night. So at least there was comfort in that, I guess.
Yeah, Saturday was a mess because of that. Every time I felt like, okay, I'm good. I literally like went to bed early and everything. I was like exhausted anyway, so I'm like, okay, sleep this off, kind of a thing. And then I woke up really early. I have no idea, but Fenerbahce's game was like really early, so like 8 in the morning. So I wake up to watch that. Fenerbahce is amazing this year, but same thing in that game. I was like, oh my god, I cannot run away from VAR. Like a goal gets overturned, we're just like, what? Three different penalties are not given. Even though Fenerbahce won 5-0, I was like, oh my god, I cannot run away from freaking VAR. And so now, as you see this discussion, and I think this is like the worst part, right? Like Ryan is like, I'm more pissed at the explanation. I think as you see the explanation of what happened, it's just freaking mind-boggling. Like it looks like a mom and pop operation that's in fact multi-billions involved in here.
It was just maybe 4 weeks ago where I sat here and I was saying it is pathetic, it is ridiculous, it is inexcusable that the richest league in the world that wants to showcase their product, which is the best product in the world, is able to still showcase problems like these. If you can't even get these referees to communicate with one another properly, how do you expect to showcase a product that you're trying to show the world that it is levels above anything else that they're watching, levels above anything else that they're seeing? How can you sit here and then actually believe that you're making people want to watch this sport when you are driving people away who have been watching this sport? And so it's incredible that we had to go to lengths. And look, I understand that other teams have also been, for lack of better words, shafted by VAR decisions. I get that. I think what's important with the Liverpool statement is that they made it. And I think what's going to be more important is that if other clubs are also backing them up in that statement, because maybe unfairly, if we had a club like Luton, if we had a club like Palace come out with that sort of statement, people are like, "Oh, that's cute," it's nothing's
Oh,
gonna,
look at you! Like,
yeah. But the fact that it's a traditional top 6 club, and I guess maybe at some point it was someone had to make it, right? Someone had to make the statement, and unfortunately, circumstantially, it's us that have to make the statement. But yeah, it's hopefully this can further some discourse about what the hell needs to be done, because we've gone back and forth here for years about how you fix this.
yes.
The problem is if you can't even have these referees communicate together, that's just inexcusable. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't want to go into conspiracy theories, because that would mean that they're smart enough to conspire. And I just think that they're plainly incompetent, which is worse. And I don't want to blame Simon Hooper for everything, because part of it is they're in England. I guess most of it in this case is they're in England. I can understand Hooper, like in that moment, it's not his fault, because it is the job of the VAR to understand what is being called on the field and then relay that information. So to Ryan's point about the explanation, yes, it is 10 times worse. I would have much rather had them say, oh, they drew the line from the guy behind Diaz, not the foot of Udogie or whoever that was. That would, for me, most likely, I would be less pissed than what actually happened.
I don't know. I'm kind of like torn at this. I've always been against conspiracy theories, but it's almost like hard to believe the levels of incompetence now, because you're like, there's no way you can be this stupid. And the thing I still do not understand is, so like, can we please get some transparency and like watch the video on this? I want to see that room after the game is going on. Are they not like, wait, what happened? Like, they didn't give the goal. Why not stop it? And I understand, once it starts and stuff, which one is more egg on your face? Stop the game 15 seconds late and say, no, there was a miscommunication, it's actually a goal, or this fiasco right now? And that's where I feel like the whole, like, the not only like Liverpool bias, but like the overall conspiracy comes into me, thinking, no, this kind of fits the scenario, let's keep rolling with it. I don't understand it.
It's a way that they all protect each other, and we saw it. I mean, who was it that came out? Was it Mike Dean that came out saying that he didn't want to send one of the refs to the screen because he was looking out for him? Like, at that point, they lose credibility. And now we get to this point. Where do we go from here? How can we ever trust that these officials are actually paying attention to what's going on and not feel like we're just getting slighted? I don't know.
My thing is, like, they were like, and I really kind of was like slightly offended at the, trying to give an excuse and open doors by NBC to say, what's her name? I love her normally, but I was like,
Rebecca Lowe.
Yeah, let's not open the stupid door for them and say, oh, but they're trying to make the decision really fast and stuff. Okay, like, it's your freaking job. This is your job. And this used to be, you had to make the freaking decision out there. Now I'm giving you a freaking screen to look at, because you used to say, at the game speed is so hard, sometimes blah, blah, blah. You guys had the luxury of TV. Here, asshole, grab a monitor and make the call properly from the monitor. And for them not to make it, like, they were not watching the game. I just do not understand that. Like, how do you not know? Like, if you look at the shots, and even NBC talked about it afterwards, if you look at the shots, you see Diaz first celebrating, then saying, oh, like, why would Diaz suddenly be disappointed if he scored a goal? You see a screen, like a shot from the camera of like the flag going up, and then you see a highlight like on the screen. So there is no way that you do not know what happened. Like, how do you not know what happened on the field? If you do not know, how does the guy next to you not know?
Especially when you have 3 to 4 people in that room. You're supposed to be able, this is the whole point of having the system, is to correct these mistakes, these clear and obvious mistakes that we keep referring back to. This was a clear and obvious mistake. I think part of this, the linesman probably should have made this call correctly in the first place. I think based on the explanation, is that Darren England and the crew thought it was so obviously onside that they thought that was the call, and that's why they confirmed the check, because they thought it was called onside, because they thought it was so obviously onside. So part of it maybe is that, well, the linesman should have maybe made this a right call, because we've seen linesmen make good calls in closer situations than this. And I think one thing that I'm frustrated by most is that many examples over the last couple of years, we've seen this just be given as a goal and then gone back to be checked and then taken away. So why? I feel like it should have just been given, and then you give VAR the opportunity to take it back. You don't, because I can't remember within the last several weeks when there has been a flagged offside goal that's gone back and VAR has given it. I maybe I'm just forgetting a really easy example, but in my head I'm thinking just let it go, and then the VAR steps in and does its job instead of this bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame the dude for raising the flag. It's like really close, whatever, you know. And this is what VAR was for. Like when we're talking about, they're like, well, if the VAR wasn't there, it wasn't a goal anyway. Yes, exactly. That's why VAR is there, and that's my argument against people using this as an excuse to get rid of VAR, because this is what I think the Premier League refs want anyway. Because then they can go back to saying and putting like sweeping everything under the rug as we're human too. We make mistakes, because that was the whole point of the VAR, was to eliminate that. So that's obviously not being done. And I just don't understand. Like, sure, like Chris says, there's 4 people in the room. One guy control. Like, I could almost see the guy controlling the video. They're like, check that. He's like, okay, I guess. But I mean, how do they?
He's
not
like
watch
doing one of those in the cartoons, like what?
And you know, like they said check complete. Okay, he misunderstood. They start playing. How is, like, are they in the room? They're like, okay, let's get back to our poker game, because they were obviously not watching the game anyway. They're like, whatever. Like, they'll score again. I don't understand how they did not say, no. It would take 2-3 seconds for them to realize the mistake if they're watching the goddamn game, to say time out, stop everything.
There's the one thing that I understood from that is that as soon as they say check complete and Hooper blows his whistle, the goal kick gets taken, and then apparently once the free kick gets taken, they can't go back, which to me seems absolutely ridiculous and shouldn't be. It's written that way. It's not, I guess, their fault that it's written that way, but it shouldn't be written that way. And if there's an error like this that occurs, you should have enough credence to be like, okay, stop the game and fix this, right? Like I mean, like you're saying, you just blow the whistle, call it dead, fix it. I'm sure if then they fix it, there's much less. Yeah, Spurs fans might be upset. Spurs might be upset, but then they go back and see, okay, it was a legitimately correct call that they had to make, even if it means dropping the ball in front of Diaz's feet and letting him score on an open goal, right? Like that is sort of what you could hope to maybe happen, or what you could hope to see happen.
Because I feel like that's less embarrassing than this. Like, we're still not talking about this, and people are not talking. They're not statements out. It feels like this really kind of, and mind you, this is so obnoxious that it's kind of like eliminated looking at all the other calls during the game. Like, we're not even, like, nobody's even talking about those anymore, because we're like, well, at least those are subjective. This is just like obnoxious. And this is exactly what I'm afraid of. Dean says they're just gonna, and I agree with him, but I'm afraid this is what's gonna come out of this. They're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, we had an error, so we found a mistake. This is what we're going to do from now on. Everybody happy? Okay, as you were. And then we're going to keep going. That's what I'm afraid of, because they're going to say, oh, yeah, we should not say check complete. How the hell were you guys, who came up with this anyway, that you said check complete? Like, is there like a limit on how many words they can say on the radio? Why can't you say check complete, confirmed on and offside?
They're trying not to take up too much of the game time. So they'll take 7 minutes to look at a fucking clip, but they'll use 2 words to make sure that they can express what they're looking at.
Like, so I never understood anyway, like, who came up with that in the first place and said that should be enough, right? Did we say check complete? Do we really have to say the whole thing? Like, just let's say check complete and move on. It is just like mind-boggling. So you were talking about the statement, a lot of like different reactions, obviously, to the statement itself. I thought it was very well written, a lot more professional than I would have written it. And I've seen
just fuck.
bunch of bunch of stars because it like got edited. No, because I've seen a lot of these, and I'm telling you, man, like I've seen this theater, I've seen this movie in Turkey, and like having seen some of those statements made back home, I was saying, I was like, I sent this to my brother, and I said, like, hey, this is like the English version of the ones that they do back in Turkey, because they're a lot more pointed and semi-insulting and stuff like that. This I thought was like very British of them overall, like a very English, polite way of putting it overall, as opposed to the Turkish Mediterranean style. I guess now we're talking about, of course, Gary Neville, who initially was like, yeah, this is ridiculous and stuff, talk shit about the statements. So my question now is, okay, like, what are you supposed to do? You're just supposed to let it go? You're just supposed to be angry the first half hour and then just act like nothing happened?
Yeah, I guess the thing that maybe pops into their heads is, well, what can actually be changed? What can actually be done retroactively? I understand what can be changed proactively moving forward, but what can actually be done retroactively? Are they going to have these two teams replay the game? Most likely not. Are they going to award Liverpool an extra point? No, you can't. You also can't do that because we don't know what happens after that Diaz goal goes in.
Yeah.
We don't know if Spurs still go on to win 2-1. We can't say that that's the exact situation that would occur from this. So I don't know if it's just a lack of understanding what can be done to fix this, and it's more like, okay, well, what do you think the statement's going to do for you then? Deal. Or if it's just another one of those, well, I was on their side enough. I gave them 20 minutes when I was on their side, and now I have to kind of go back to who I am.
I think part of it is, I think, like Ryan was saying earlier, like the next day, NBC ripped them apart. Because the next day, NBC saw that, hey, this is like really obnoxious and people are up in arms. That's why sometimes I'm not too big on how NBC almost is like NFL TV, NBA TV, where it's like a mouthpiece overall. And they're like, always like, oh, it is a hard job to referee and stuff. I don't give a damn. If you can't handle it, then don't do it. I mean, if it's too tough for you, go do something else.
If it's too jobby for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Ryan says the point of that statement is that it's on record by a big club. Other big clubs making statements may make it. I don't know. Will it the number of the next day, two Robbies ripped them apart. But I mean, the first day, even I thought they kind of were like, shit happens. Huge 3 points for Tottenham, and I think that was like what was making me more and more angry while this is going on. And I'm sure Premier League is well aware of the shit that's going down on all their social media, like PL in USA and PL Premier League and stuff like that. They keep posting stuff about like Tottenham is back, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, why don't you guys lay low for a little bit and maybe quiet, because the comments were going apeshit. And I think once that reaction came, do you think the reaction is that big because it's Liverpool, or like the profile of the game, or almost like the last drop to make things overflow?
I think the Liverpool thing really makes it bigger than it is, because I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think if it's a club like Luton that this happens to, we don't see this kind of reaction. I think overall, I think it's unfortunate, but I think that's the reality. They just don't have the gravitas that a club like Liverpool has, the amount of fans around the world, because the biggest viewership from the US can sometimes comes from Liverpool games, especially Liverpool and Spurs, which has been a great game over the last several years. And so I think most of that had to do with the fact that it was Liverpool. And this is a year where it feels like you could have several teams potentially challenging for the title on a day when City dropped points, on a day where United dropped points. And so I think overall it was unfortunate that it was marred in the way that it was. And I think Spurs fans and Spurs players most likely didn't want this to be the reason why they won the game. I think as a competitor, you want to play against the best competition you can play against and win against them fairly, for the most part, I feel. And so I think it also hurts them because they don't get to enjoy, an amazing win against the 9-man side that where they were celebrating like they won the Champions League final. They never won, but it's tough because you really wish that it just didn't go that way.
Yeah, Chris says when like Richard Keys, especially like Richard Keys and Andy Gray by itself was like case closed. Goldbridge as well. I feel like he's a bit more objective. Like even if he has to side with Liverpool, he states that it hurts him to do so, which is fair. But yeah, I think it shows that like everybody agrees this is crap. And I guess if you flip the situation, if this happened to us, we would take the 3 points and run with it, and we would most likely say, well, we've been screwed before. And I'm sure Tottenham, I mean, I'll ask Jake on Wednesday night show, but I'm sure he has like a closet of things he can bring out and be like, this game, 34 minutes and stuff like that.
No, they could easily bring up the Jota high kick on Kulusevski's head. They could bring up the handball in the Champions League. There's several things that I see online that Spurs fans keep going back to and saying, well, this is just karma for this and karma for this, and this is karma for the Chelsea goal that didn't stand in the FA Cup. Or the Carabao Cup, whichever one that was, when Lukaku was onside. And so and that's why I think having a club with the stature of Liverpool making a statement like this and having other clubs in support of it is important, because every club has felt the effects of a really poor decision. There have been, what was it? I think it was 11 apologies from VAR in the last 18 months or something like that. And it's many different clubs that are getting affected by it. And I think we have to also understand, while it's really frustrating to be on the receiving end of this, there have been moments where we might have benefited just a little bit too. And so like the Fabinho challenge on Ferguson, like I think we have to kind of sometimes take a step back and realize, yes, it's shit. It's awful. It shouldn't have been called that way. But we can't. That's why I don't think there's a conspiracy, because it happens too often around the league that it wouldn't make sense for it to always come back down to one club feeling the wrath.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, it did happen to United earlier in the season, in the Spurs game, actually. Again, maybe the Spurs is the conspiracy now, because it was like, Romero's.
They've been trying to get him a trophy all along.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. I really can't remember. Maybe we're biased. A lot of calls going against City's way, where there was like a VAR ordeal and an apology or anything like that. I really don't. And you don't want to make it like, oh, it's like one team, but it's very possible. I mean, here's the thing that worries me. Ryan says Premier League teams turn down the World Cup offside VAR. And I really think, and that's the talking point I do not understand, for one, and definitely not like, is this being a discussion about VAR. Because this doesn't have anything to do with VAR. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot about tonight too, because I think the boys are on the fence with VAR. Well, Bickler has definitely fallen over to the other side of the fence. But, I mean, I just don't understand. So we're saying it's not the system, it's the people, right, for the VAR. So we're getting rid of that system and we're going back to the people, and we're expecting the people on the pitch now who, I mean, are used to the fact of being bailed out now over the last 5 years, go back and say, okay, we're going to ref great now. You're not even going to miss VAR. I just do not buy that at all. And I feel like this is a league that brought VAR after everybody else. And I almost think like these assholes don't want VAR. This is an excuse to get rid of VAR more than anything else. They do not want VAR because it was a lot easier without all this afterwards video watching. We could just do whatever the hell we wanted and, write it off as like human error. Whereas you guys brought this monitors now and stuff. So they're being evaluated a lot closer. Things were a lot better before because they were human and they could go off. I don't understand why this is a VAR conversation.
It'll still end up being a human conversation one way or the other. And that's, I think the idea of VAR and the system in place in theory is a good system that should work. And yes, around transparency is the answer, but also what happens when the transparency is there and the refs are incompetent? Who do you bring in? I think we've had this conversation before, right? Do you bring in foreign officials into the league? Do you set up a brand new system of trying to encourage new refereeing and making sort of a new school sort of thing where you are bringing new people in to teach and to become these new referees to overtake the ones that are already in the league? Because it can't be the most appetizing job to take, right? Like, you take abuse from 22 players and coaches every time you're on the pitch, and you don't really get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on who it is that's reffing, but yes, transparency is good, but where do we go from there then? You know, I think the whole thing about having enough bodies to want to referee is going to be a problem if we can't get a system in place that protects them in a way where it can help fix wrong calls while also not punishing them for making the wrong calls. So I think it always just still comes back down to the communication between the VAR room and the official. And I think I'll go back to what I said maybe a few months ago, is that I think the VAR room, it should be a separate entity, a separate body from the referees on the field. There shouldn't be a connection there, because then you have that camaraderie, that protection that Mike Dean referred to. And if you just have like a New York room, right, like they do in the NFL, where it just covers that, then you set up less of a possibility of people to sit here and then clamor about conspiracies.
And that's the issue, I think, when you could have, especially if it is totally away, far away, if you're going to bring, like, you know, swap around international refs and stuff, I feel like this is the best opportunity to do that is probably VAR. Because, you know, these issues happen obviously in different leagues as well, but the same group monitoring itself, I think we see a lot of examples in society. It does not freaking work because they back each other up, and you can name a lot. And, you know, I'm not even going to dive into that mess, but it happens in society, and that's always the problem. The transparency, and I agree with Chris here, shows them to be incompetent, that maybe we can start to fix the problem. And I know what you're saying, but I feel like if your job, okay, see, now we're going to have to go into this. We'll open a can of worms. But let's say the police force, right? Yeah, I know. I didn't want to open it.
That's a big fucking can of worms.
But I guess, like, my always thing is, you know, if there are a lot of police officers, and I know some, hey, we have some actually as contributors. Scott is like a police officer, that are the good cops, and they probably do want the bad cops weeded out and not having to protect them. Right. The same thing is in like military, like these organizations. It's usually organizations that are kind of like up there where nobody dares say anything to, and that's where the referees want to be, clearly. But if somebody really comes in independently and weeds out the guys that are actually causing the problem, because you were never part of the problem. Actually, those guys are giving you a bad name. Isn't that overall a good thing? And other people are more likely to now join it, because maybe they were not joining it not to be associated with these guys in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's something that I didn't think about. I think, yeah, if you're able to bring in a party that could essentially investigate and be able to produce a number of quality of refs to keep, and then replace them with referees who are able to then make up the numbers and who are competent enough. I think it's just competency enough for consistency. I think that's pretty much all that we're asking for, is that they don't have to be the best that we've ever seen in terms of refereeing. They just have to be the best together consistently. You know, if you can't have two refs call the same game the same way, that's a problem. And I understand that some games are just ref differently because some refs are different. I get that, but there shouldn't be situations where it's so blatantly different that it affects the entire game so much.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan says maybe we need a VAR. It's like a bunch of officers. One is watching the other one, like, just like level by level.
Can you imagine? Like, oh yeah, check complete, and they still fucking get it wrong.
You know what? That's why we're having. They're like, maybe we should change the language, man. The fact that they want to watch the fucking, yeah, I mean, I don't understand how that happens. It almost feels like that's the explanation they came up with, and then like sometimes how you make an excuse, and then you're like, that almost makes it worse. Maybe I shouldn't have come up with an excuse. That's what it
Yeah.
sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that the goal is going to. I just want to hear that Diaz goal will stand. The
Such a
only
good
thing
goal.
I can see compared to some of these other things is this is a kind of like a rule violation. And I don't know if that would change anything, because if they ever replay games or award points and all that kind of stuff, it's usually like a rule violation, like, they had too many guys, or like this guy was playing out of status, he should not have played, and stuff like that. Do you think qualify, or this is going to be this is what I worry about? We got another week over here, and then the international break is going to come, and this is going to just go away.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything going to be done from it. We talked about it earlier on the show. It's just what do you do to rectify this at this point? And there isn't anything, because you can't go back and give the goal. You most likely can't replay it, because like you said, it's not something that, from what I understand, is a replayable offense. Unless they make an addendum to the rules and fix this. But then speaking of can of worms, then you just open up so many different cans, and then you have many teams over the course of the last 20, 25, 30 years. Well, if they were able to replay this one, why couldn't we replay that one? Like, we were relegated because we lost that point. Why? And we are now financially insolvent because we weren't able to replay that game. Like, I just think you can't. It's important to set a precedent, but not in this way, because that's just going to, I think, further issues for more clubs altogether if you replay the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that I don't get is, like Dean says, they apologize and they moved on. And I think I mean, that doesn't work in life. Like, I can't think of another scenarios. I mean, dare I say, you do something shady, you can't keep going to Michelle and saying like, yeah, sorry about that, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You can't go at work, screw up at your work over and over again, and then come back and be like, yeah, sorry. They're like, dude, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but yeah, we can't have that anymore. And then you lose your job. I don't understand how you can, but this is the thing, this is the status. And that's why I brought up the example of like the police and like military and stuff. That's like the status they want. I think Saito was talking about in the comments earlier. If you say anything against them, it's like the freaking mafia. You get fined, you get punished. How dare you even question us and stuff like that? It's just like they want to be up everywhere. And this is why I feel like they want this conversation about VAR, because I don't think Premier League ever wanted VAR, because they're too cool for school, and how dare we monitor them, literally, and with a monitor.
It's an ego thing, but above all, that's what it comes down to. And the only way to fix that is to replace the people that are there. I guess, I mean, that's one way to start, is to either replace the people that are there or replace the people that are supposed to be helping the people that are there.
And this goes back to the conspiracy theory, though. Like Chris says, why? What is there to hide? I think there is stuff there to hide. I really feel like if I'm still alive in 10, 15 years, we're going to be watching a juicy Netflix documentary about all the shenanigans that was happening in the Premier League behind the scenes, kind of a thing. And I think, obviously, as money goes up, corruption goes up, because corruption kind of like follows money around. And we might think, I mean, like my brother, like we were talking with my brother, he's like somehow the more naive one, saying like, oh, there can't be and stuff like that. But at the same time, has to be, this can't be incompetence. I really don't feel, and if it is incompetence, okay, then you got to take action. If somebody is this bad at their job, somebody's not watching their job. I mean, it's basically falling asleep at your post. I mean, you name it. I mean, you can come up with like 100 analogies. Nobody gets away with that. You can't say sorry and move on. Maybe you can say sorry once, but what is it, 20 times in 18 months or something? I think Dean was saying earlier that they showed in Sky Sports. You just can't, but I have a feeling, man, they will say they sorry. I guarantee you they're going to say, we changed the language, solve the problem. This will never happen again, because now we raised the quota from 2 words to 4 words that somebody in the VAR room can say, and we're just going to move on. Error fix will never happen again, but then the points will get screwed. We talked about this in the Wolves game, week 1. If Wolves get relegated, it could be because of that point.
Yeah, it's Yeah, it's beyond frustrating, and I feel like it's I had a point, and then you made a great point, and I forgot my point that was going to be
My
not as
point
great.
trumped your point.
So yeah,
Yeah, if a pilot has 4 crash landings, but what if he says he's sorry? Like, what if he's sorry about the crash landings? Would that make a difference? I just do
no
not.
one died. It's okay.
Next time I'll open the wheels first.
I saw people back there like treating it as a roller coaster. What do you want me to do?
Almost every week of the season. And here's the thing, I do not understand how, dude, like, how is that possible? Like, they were like, all these years they told us, yeah, you guys have the luxury of watching replays at home. How can there be so many mistakes from replays? And we're talking about, like, some of the stuff can be like by rule, right? Like you're saying, I guarantee you they're going to go back to the Curtis Jones thing. They're not going to say how it got there. They're going to say intention is not important, endangering a player, so it's a red card. I guarantee you, that's just going to be as is, and that's going to go away because it's not really the same thing as McAllister, I don't think. I mean, anybody who has ever played the game knows, and this is why I really like Dixon and so on the one they're on the call, because I think they call it as it is as a player and say this right here is bullshit kind of a thing, and there is no way like you can't control what you're doing after you step on a ball. I mean, it's just, it looked awkward even like in like real time. And I was like, yellow is harsh because he did not mean to do that. He just like rolled and then to become a red. But they're going to blame some of it on the rules, which then, okay, change the rules, change the wording. You have all off season to do this shit. And in the past, they've changed it mid-season, change the ruling and make it like sensible. And I think that goes back to what Chris is talking about. Get some people who actually have played the game and say, hey, that shit is going to happen. There's no way to stop that. That's going to happen. There's no way to stop that. I feel like they're putting in some rules, like, going back to American sports over here, for example, like in NFL and stuff like that. There are players in that committee, players and coaches in that committee that's making the rules. So they get their input one way or the other, because somebody can say, dude, there's no way you can do that as a player in real time. Why are they so hesitant to involve players? That, again, brings me back to the conspiracy theory, because they don't want other people in their own business kind of thing.
Yeah, I get that. And I think what's really damaging for sometimes for how VAR sets up these reviews is that they will start at the still image. And the still image of Jones, of the stud going into the leg, looks really bad. And I do respect that. It looks terrible when that's the first thing you see. And so I guess for me, I do understand why that was a red card. And I don't expect it to be changed. And I'm not as upset about that one, because I think if we're in the same position, we would be clamoring for a red card. And I think most people who are going to say otherwise are kidding themselves. I think you're just...
Hold on, let me stop you, though.
Yeah.
I agree. But I would say something and say that's bullshit, mainly because of what happened in the past, not because I like the rule. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think and that goes to the point of if both players, because if you go back 7 frames and you see a still image, both feet are in the same position going for the ball. It's just a matter that Curtis's foot hit the top of the ball, came off, got him in the shin, and that was the big point of the sending off, was because it was not the intention, but how it ended up happening. And I think that is something that can be looked into to be changed. But I think in the spirit of what has been, but that's the problem, is just it hasn't been consistent, because we saw the Oliver skip challenge on Luis Diaz last year that looked very similar. That wasn't a red because they said something about the intention. But then we also got away, like I said earlier, with Jota's high kick to Kulusevski's head last year before he scored the game winner. So I feel like that's why I guess I sympathize a little bit with some other clubs, because there have been some tough decisions that have gone in our favor too. but I don't want this to seem like I'm not upset that we also got shafted by. But I think there's a little bit of bias that we sometimes, a little bit too much homerism sometimes.
That's fair. That's fair. But I think, like I say, like my homerism, I guess, in those situations when that happens is because 2 weeks ago we got a red for it. Like if the Spurs guy does it, like for like next week, if it happens in the Brighton game, I'm gonna be like, oh, so we got a red card over there though. Like same thing when we got a yellow card for something that's like he asked for a yellow card, so he got a yellow card for it, and then next week the guy asks it. Like that's the thing, that when you don't get consistency, that's when I think the homerism gets even like bigger. And I never understand that. I think like Ryan was saying, it's a soft read by the letter of the law. We make the law. So if the red doesn't make sense, we should change the law. Humans have changed religious books because it doesn't make sense to them and it didn't fit their service. So there's no reason why we can't like sit down and change the wording.
PGMOL is above any religion. But we sat here last month saying these exact words. I'm pretty sure we can go back and watch. And we're saying, look, McAllister got a yellow for asking for the card, and it's not going to be called in the future. Just watch 2 to 3 weeks. It's not going to be called. And it's the exact same thing that has happened. It's just it's too predictable. It's laughable. And I know some people. I think we're going to get into it eventually. Maybe, I don't know. But the Jota cards.
Yep.
I'm probably going to be in the minority here. I think because of the system at play where you can't go back and check yellows, I understand why the first yellow was given, because from where Hooper was, it did look like Jota clipped Udogie.
Yeah.
I get that. I understand that. But I think Jota should have been carded minutes before when he grabbed Madison from behind and took him down. Then for Jota to then not understand that he's on a yellow and make such a stupid decision on that challenge, that is all on himself. I don't blame Hooper for the Jota red at all. I don't think most Liverpool fans should. I think Jota should be the one that we should be upset at, because he really did kind of fuck the team in that sense.
Yeah, I do blame. I have to say it. I do blame Jota more than anything else on that situation. He has to know better. And I think in real time, to be fair to Hooper here, in real time, I thought the first one was a yellow too. It just looked like it. It looked like he tripped him. So I can see that happening in live. And that's the thing. Like those things can happen. That thing behind you should never happen.
Correct.
And going back to the other thing, I mean, like Bickler says, I can't imagine getting that many things wrong in a 2-hour window at work. And then be able to just say sorry and go home, and just to come back the next morning over and over and over again. I think that's the biggest part. This is what happens when you get refs that I've never played. They define the letter of the law by looking at still shot. Yeah, when he went to the camera, they literally had pauses. I thought they were going to do like a cartoon effect next to it, like boom or like smack or something like that, so that they really get the full impact of the situation. And I was like, show them the whole video. Don't show them that. But I think it goes back to Bickler saying, and it goes all the way back to what we were talking about. The players should be involved in making these rules of the law so that they make sense. But at the same time, if there was a window, going back to what Bickler is saying, though, let's say we put that in the rule, right? For Jones thing. Do you think a ref is still going to go back there and be able to comprehend and contemplate what had happened if they have never played it? But are there really soccer refs that have never played the game? I mean, like we didn't play pro either, but we understand how that can happen because we played the game and we understand physics, and we probably stepped on the ball a few times ourselves. So you don't have to be a pro. You just have to have. I mean, can you be in England and not play soccer? Like, because you just play soccer. I don't think
you just have to understand that if you have two objects and you have a center object and you put one object on top of that second object, there's a chance that it comes off of that and comes up. Like it's that simple. You don't have to play the sport to understand and recognize that. It's just a matter of understanding how that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan says most NFL refs never. Yeah, I can see it because there's some like dudes over there like, yeah, he has never played this game. Because that dude looks like me. I would die like after the first play. But I just don't understand if that solves it, or if that's the issue, that these maybe making of the rules, but then I don't know if I trust these guys to be able to make the judgment call on the rules.
It's all going to come back to how we define these things. If we're going to define and begin with clear and obvious, and we have 25 decisions that have been wrong because it was clear and obvious that they were wrong, then what's the point of writing anything up if it's not going to work?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
which ones?
Well, I mean, you have to watch the goddamn game. I mean, forget the rules. Somebody's gonna watch the game in that room. Like, what were they watching? There was not another game on. Are they watching like something else in there? I don't understand how 4 people don't know what happened there. It is just like unbelievable. So sadly, really, this is what's going to be the conversation. I find it impossible to judge a team and performances and stuff in a situation where they had 10 men, 9 men playing against the odds, because I'm sure they knew, they can see some of the stuff, and it's almost harder. And it's very, very unfortunate. Of all people, freaking Matip, who had an excellent game, gets the own goal. Honestly, he clears that for a throw-in. I think the game is over. And that's probably, to me, in my head, that point was going to be worth like 5. It was just going to be, but that's, I guess, it's been like 46 minutes. We didn't even talk a minute of the soccer itself.
That's the unfortunate part about this shit. It's just it doesn't allow us to actually talk about the sport. It's annoying. But yeah, I think every player on that pitch deserves a 10 out of 10 just because of effort, except Jota deserves a fucking 3 out of 10 because he's brain dead. I'm sorry. I know I'm gonna die on this hill where I don't think Jota is as good as advertised. I think he pops up and bangs in incredible goals at certain times, but for 85% of the match, he is invisible. He might make a good through pass 1 out of every 2 games. Where it's like, oh look, Jota's back. It's like, no, he can't. He doesn't have a good hold up play. He makes good runs, and that's about it. He shows up in good spaces, and I just think that overall, he really, really hurts the team more than he helps the team. And that might be a bad hill to die on. But aside from that, effort-wise, yeah, everyone deserves a 10. Unfortunate, especially like you said, that Matip was the unlucky recipient of that cross. I think that Gravenberch should have A, taken that ball to the corner a little bit more towards the end, or B, either Endo or Trent should have taken a yellow when they were breaking back towards on defense. I think if either Endo or Trent take that yellow there, stop the ball, give them a free kick, it goes completely differently. But instead, they were let through, switch went on, cross came in, and that was it. I think there was a way to stop that before it had to get to that point.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing with Gravenberch. I was like, dude, just stay there. Like, keep it in the corner, get a throw in. And I think he did try to, but I don't think, like he could muster it. Just win a corner. And yeah, that game is probably over there if you want to throw in by the time we get there and take it and kind of stuff like that. I just really find it so hard to, like, seek moments and performances and like, oh, he could have done this. I did not think Trent had a good game at all. There were a couple of times where like nobody had told Trent we were playing with like 9 because he was kind of like jogging back, and I'm like, dude, just because we have 3 center backs doesn't mean you should just jog back. We're still only 9 men, kind of a deal. And I don't know, maybe because he was thinking of his hammy at the same time or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of hard to judge on that. But how do you think this affects it? I think all our hope is we saw the team perform the way they did, and we saw them wronged the way they did. We, I think, are all hoping that this is kind of like a us against the world mentality where they go out and kick some ass. I think Kazi was saying it on the post match. I really feel bad for this team coming over for Europa because they're just gonna get like
McAllister's brother. They're gonna get a 10-0 thrashing.
Like, God damn it, just be good to them. Like, like if we won that game 5-0 and stuff, they would be a lot more comfortable coming to Anfield. What do you make of it?
Alexis is going to meet his brother at midfield before the game saying, hey, look, you should just tell the coach that you're hurt. Just don't even play. This is going to be rough. We're pissed. Please just sit this one out. Yeah, no, I hope this galvanizes the entire team. I think social media these days, obviously there's pros and cons. I think it's fun seeing the players doing those subtle shots at I mean, McAllister, not so subtle shot on Romero's post.
And he'll probably get fined.
He'd probably get fined for that, unfortunately. But, fuck it. Like, I like that. It's one of those things where it's fun to see. I think this brings everyone together. And I just can't wait for the reverse fixture at Anfield. I can't wait. I think it's going to be so electric. And I hope that it's in good circumstances. I hope both teams are, 100% healthy, because I would love no excuses for when this team stomps the shit out of Spurs at Anfield in the reverse fixture. But yeah, I think overall it feels like, and you can say this about maybe any team that gets wrong. Like just, I've seen a bunch of Chelsea fans and Spurs fans. It's always an us versus them mentality kind of thing, which whatever. But like, I'm excited to see this come from this group of guys, because it's a bunch of newer guys playing together. And if you can get them together like this that much quicker, I think it's just a good sign.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because you're right. Every manager or every locker room tries to do that, right? Like I hear it like in like pro sports, like in the NBA, like Golden State Warriors, like everybody no, nobody did. What? Like
no one believed in us. We've only won 2 titles.
Because one guy commented on your Instagram feed. Because people try to make it right, always like us against the world. Nobody's giving us a shot, guys, and stuff like that. But I think this is so natural. Like it almost doesn't have to be said. And I think that's when it becomes more legit you against the world, where you don't have to constantly say it to each other and say it's against the world, guys, and stuff like that. Because I think it goes without saying almost at this point. So I'm hoping they kind of like use this and kind of like push forward more with it. Not that this team was not already gelling well, but I agree with what you're saying too. It's only something that's going to make it come even closer and perform that way. And I mean, we didn't get round to it, but I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it tonight, and as well as like Wednesday morning. These red cards and suspensions and stuff will pretty much shape up the squad moving forward. Some people will get their opportunities, and I think it kind of like shapes up the Europa squad and stuff like that too. But yeah, it sucks that we had our morning show and we did not talk much soccer at all, apart from you smashing Jota.
I mean, well, this is sort of what we had in mind for the morning show a bit, right? Was it not? We wanted to sort of broaden the conversation to more overarching topics. So I think overall, we did what we intended on doing in that dark room we met in many months ago when we planned our takeover of the internet. So I think we're doing okay.
I even solved the problem with our police department. So there you go. The world is a better place thanks to us this morning. But thanks to CD said this is the whole point. I know that the therapy I needed.
This was cathartic. It was cathartic.
And that's what the whole point is. You laugh a little bit, cry a little bit. Because honestly, maybe even the post-match, it was like when we did the post-match, I kind of like tried to vent and like tried to move away from it. But yeah, it's like you got to talk about it. That's why, we do the Monday show for Bickler to be for so he can lay it out and tell the stories and stuff like that. So
I have one fun fact to before this all wraps up. Can you guess? I'll give you maybe the year, maybe the decade, the last time that Everton, Liverpool, Man City, and Man United all lost on the same day in the Premier League.
What am I giving you? A year?
A year. I'll give you the decade if you're close.
Hold on. I'll give you. Okay. So we're going. Let's go with decade first. Premier League? No, overall.
No, I mean, sorry, not the Premier League. Top flight. Yeah, because that's you'd only have 3 decades to go from.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be too easy. Damn it. 70s.
March 18th, 1950. The last time all 4 of those teams lost on the same day in the top flight.
You know what? I still scream at the mailman, says Ryan. That helps the best. Well, hold on. Mail lady will be in shortly. Good call. Let me give that a shot to see how that works. I don't think Angie will appreciate this because, obviously she picks up our packages for the business. But hey, whatever works. I would like, hey.
Every package you get from now on is going to have just punches through it. Here you fucking go.
How about this for therapy, asshole? Oh man, we'll be back tonight with the boys. There'll be even more therapy. 7 Central, 8 Eastern for our weekly Monday night podcast. We'll get Bickler's take, Galley's take on the whole over deal, and I know there'll be a lot of VAR discussion. Sadly, it's really difficult to talk about the game on this one, really, because it just feels hollow. I mean, if you just pick up a position, you're like, oh, you should have slid right. He's like, yeah, but normally there'd be 2 more guys on the pitch, kind of a thing. So I found it really hard. You just gotta appreciate the efforts and kind of like feel bad for the boys. Really, I thought they fought a lot. It is not easy. 10 men is one thing, man, but 9 is rough. Been there, and I can only imagine. And you're playing against a good team that can like stretch you out and have good players and stuff like that too. So it was a rough ordeal. They almost made it, and that's what. So I think it was more heartbreaking. It was frustrating, annoying, angering. Then it ended with a hint of heartbreaking and disappointment. So it was just not a good combo. So hopefully we helped all, cured all. I'm sure not, but hopefully we played a little bit part of it. So at least you're not screaming at the mailman, state mailmans across U.S.
I guess I have one last question for you then, in based off what you just said, and you can make it as long or as short as you want to make it. Let's say it ends 1-1, and this comes out where the goal should have stood, right? So it's the difference between potentially having 3 points or potentially having 1 point. Are you more upset that it ends 1-1 and we have the goal chalked off? Or are you more upset that it ended 2-1 and we have the goal chalked off?
Probably about the same. I mean, because like you were saying earlier, this is really early in the game. I mean, if this was the 85th minute where I feel like that was the game winner, it'd probably be a different situation. But you don't. I mean, just because you went up 1-0 does not mean you're going to win the game. Correct. And you're already down to 10 men and stuff. So maybe you don't go down to 9 men, then you play the game differently, whatever. But so that's brings a lot of like what ifs to me. But I'll tell you what, the fact that this happened, like I say, the next morning when I watched the Fenerbahce game, and Fenerbahce won the game 5-0, but they were easily robbed from like 3 penalties, and one of the goals was overturned with VAR. And we were talking about it with my brother and I, like the thing we do with him. And that's when I would want us to be even more vocal when it's 1-1, because then it's not, oh, you guys are like crying, you guys are whining because you guys lost. I think it becomes your statement. This statement would be even more powerful if that game ended 1-1, because you're not complaining about the results and like how you got wrong to get that result, but you're complaining about the system overall. So I would still want us to be just as vocal, if not more. And I think it would mean more, even if it ended in a 1-1. But the disappointments at the end wouldn't be there. And I think it would be more about, like I say, that point would be worth almost 5 points. And that would really be like, hey, if we work together, we can do anything kind of a mentality. So we will see. We will see how the team responds to this. I mean, they got a tough fixture coming up next week as well. And we have the Europa game coming up. And then obviously the international break. We don't know what happened with, I didn't hear what happened with Gakpo yet. I don't know if it was out.
They're saying several weeks, hopefully only a few weeks, which in Liverpool terms means a fucking several months, man. It's just...
Yeah, my feeling is probably after the other international break or something like that. But as long as it's not like months, I guess that's like the biggest thing. And we don't know. This is like the first for Gakpo. We don't know if he's like a fast healer or, if it's a guy that's going to keep getting injured kind of a thing. This is the first time I think he's had an injury that I can recall, especially something like this. So, but thanks to all those commenting, joining us this morning. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not following us on YouTube. And we'll be back tonight at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Thanks a lot, Matush. You guys have an awesome week.